Okay, for this episode, we're doing a Q&A. We got a bunch of questions from our Slack community, which is, several thousand people strong.
Yeah,
I'm in it
limitedsupplypod.com.
And so we got a bunch of questions coming through Slack and I think possibly through Twitter as well. And so we're going to run through a bunch of, Slack user community and Twitter Q&As that we've got.
Amazing. We've got thousands of people now who are active on Slack. So I've got some questions that I picked here and we're just going to get right into it.
Okay.
So first question comes from Rose. Rose asks, what SaaS companies are most commonly pitched or used by e-commerce brands that are actually adding no real or measurable value, but everybody seems to fall for it?
That's a great question. Jesus, that's a good question and like a harsh question.
Do we have lawyers on retainer?
I will say this. Let me tell you SaaS brands that I don't love.
Okay.
And one is Recharge. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people use Recharge for subscriptions, and for a long time, it was the only option available on Shopify for subscriptions. It was like Recharge and Bolt, and Recharge's integration was much better. But like, it is not. When I used Recharge, it was really tough. It wasn't great. And when I had a conversation like we had with Harley here, talking about Recharge with executives at Recharge, and I was like, here are obvious product features you should have, and they were like, maybe you shouldn't use Recharge anymore. And I was like, I fucking hate you guys.
Yeah.
And like, I've never mended that bridge, and so I'm not a big fan of that team. And so I'm always like a fan of every other subscription platform. I think I think you might be in one of them. I'm not an investor in any. You're in two of them.
Yeah.
I really like Loop. I'm not an investor in any. Let me be clear. I don't have an advisor in any.
That guy's a beast.
Yeah. This guy who runs
Ayush,
Loop.
I think.
Yeah. If you want him to build out something, it'd be like that Harley thing where they're like, okay,
not only that, he'll come fly to you.
Yeah.
Spend a day with you. Learn what you want, and then have it done by the time you wake up.
Yeah, and he'll fly from India and then fix it over here wherever you are, and then on his flight back, he will personally build it so that it's done by the time he lands. So I really like that, ferociousness.
Yeah.
The other things that I don't love, and I hate to mention these because I think you might be an investor in them, but I'm going to mention them anyway. One is like co-op commerce, or that thing where you're like, okay, you can share customers at the end of this. I don't think that any of those things work or add value, and I've heard them say that they add value, so I could be entirely wrong. And I've never been associated with a brand that's been using it, I think. But I don't think those things work.
Okay.
But hopefully I'm wrong. If you're an investor, are you an investor?
Now that they're on a CPA-based model, it's worked much better.
Okay, they're on a CPA. Before they were on a CPM-based model.
Correct.
And it didn't work well.
It still worked well, but it's one of those things where it's such a unique placement for ads. It really works best if you're a brand name brand. Like if you're not a brand, it's hard for somebody to see a lip balm and click it and get excited. But if it's like, Miracle Balm is right there and you just purchase from Caraway, you might see that and it gets you to click and eventually make a purchase.
Do you know what percent? Like, I think that one time somebody told me that 10% of people who saw one of those things were active on the other site. I don't even know what the click-through rate is, but I'd be surprised if it was more than 2%.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay. 2% sounds right, though.
Yeah, but I don't have anything against them, to be clear. I just don't think that it'll work, and I wouldn't use it. But you may be an investor, and other people may be using it, and maybe it does work. Yeah. Honestly, I've never heard people be like, "Wow, we're really growing our brand based on this type of share."
Yeah.
What are the other things? I'll give you one other thing that I don't think works, but this isn't really a SaaS company. It's those email shares where we're like, win $1,000, win $1,000, and 5 of brands will email all the customers. And as a brand, you're like, we did this once with Vogue, or not with Vogue. It was like with Cosmo magazine.
Yeah,
and they're like, yeah, we emailed our 2 million people, and 3 people signed up. And I'm like, who did you email? That 3 people signed up. I don't think any of those things work, and I think there's some SaaS platforms that are geared towards that. And then I think there's a lot of SaaS companies that are that don't answer this question. Where commonly pitched or used, that are not commonly pitched or used, but they're just too. I'm sorry, they do add real value. They're far too expensive for what they're asking.